Hi, and welcome everyone to this episode today. I have invited Razmik Sargsyan today from Armenia, and he's a transformative coach. And for the moment, you are staying in Sweden.
Yes, I am. Thank you so much for the invitation. We had a lovely conversation last time, and I'm very curious to see what will come up this time. And we're much closer than we were last time, of course.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, Razmik, you have been in my channel before, but it was I think it was at least 1 year ago.
Yeah.
So, but now you're back in Sweden, and we are going to meet. But I've got a puppy for the moment, and it's not so easy to go away and leave him at home. But it will be better. So we are going to meet.
Looking forward to it, absolutely.
Yeah. And I read something that you wrote. You are a transformative coach and you run a podcast also, Brand New Thought. Mm. But you wrote something that I read, and it's inner radical change doesn't come from effort. It comes from understanding.
Yeah. It's a very interesting topic to speak about. I mean, we could theorize that where does understanding come from? I mean, part of it may come from effort in terms of looking at a specific direction, but I think that specific piece that you're referring to, I was referring to, there's a trend within the personal development industry that you take these 3 steps, then you'll be good. You meditate twice a day, then you'll be good. And there is nothing wrong with any technique or effort, especially there are so many techniques that are very well researched and they have really great effects on us, especially when it comes to the body and brain coherence and everything. But a lasting change comes from perhaps through these efforts or without these efforts, getting a better understanding about how the whole system works, because then it's not just about transcending limitations or transcending stress, but really understanding why they come up, how the information can be useful to us. Because if something comes up in the system, it's there for a reason. And when we just understand these little subtleties, it's just incredible how much can change in terms of our experience of life without anything in the external life changing. So that's what I was referring to, probably.
Yeah, and when we talk about that, we comes to the topic today because it can be a trigger when you want to understand things that don't come to you because you're looking out and you don't get it, and you get triggered about it. So today is to understand why triggers keep showing up for us. How do you think about that, Razmik? Triggers.
Yeah, that's a great topic. I mean, in the understanding that we both share, which is the 3 principles of mind, consciousness, and thought, we often speak about the meaning of feelings. Why do they pop up to begin with? And we point to the fact that they're there for a reason. They give us feedback about our thinking or the quality of our thinking. So essentially, I'm storytelling as I go through my whole life, starting from birth. I tell stories to myself. Some of them I buy, some of them I don't. They're stories that are more in tune with the reality of how things work, generally speaking, and some are not. So they're thoughts that hurt me. They're thoughts that feel good. I'm feeling all of these thoughts. And if not for the capacity to be aware of my thoughts through just feeling, it's just automatic. It's not like there's a process that it has to go through. Anytime a feeling pops up, there was some sort of a mental activity beyond it. So that feeling is giving us feedback. And it's necessary to have that feedback. But we're scared of our feelings most of the times because we don't know that the information contained in it, especially if the feeling is negative, can be helpful. And that's probably, correct me if I'm wrong, that's probably what you're referring to as a trigger. So I mean, imagine there are people that don't have heat sensors on their hands, so they keep on burning themselves all the time. So it's useful to get this feedback. It's a friend if we understand it properly. When we don't, and when we demonize the feeling, especially nowadays with the fear of negative feelings and everything, it's just, oh my God, a negative feeling. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Well, it's there to warn you that perhaps the direction of thoughts that you're having in this moment is not so helpful. When we build on it and then we start thinking about our thinking and then about our thinking, then that turns into much more anxiety. So something that was a helpful symptom and a friend to begin with turns into an enemy. And there's a beautiful idea in the Way of Mastery. I don't know if you're familiar with that teaching. It's there are very beautiful pointers there. It says everything in the human realm is either the extension of love, and they write about love with capital L, meaning universal love. So pure consciousness. You can use whatever word that you're comfortable with. So everything in the human realm is either the extension of love or a cry for help and healing. So we have a fundamental understanding about how life works, so where our experience comes from. And the more aligned that understanding is with the reality of things, how it actually works, the better we feel and the more ease we can experience it. So the whole point of triggers is to point us to these areas where we think there are exceptions. So for example, we say we're experiencing our thinking and that our experience is coming from inside out, which if you think about it logically, it makes so much sense. I mean, I'm going around experiencing so many things. I mean, having some sort of a relationship with it. Like, isn't it more likely that my experience would come from me than all these things? So we say that. We say that we feel our thinking, or we feel the resonance of our thinking. And maybe we just say it, but we don't actually see it. Or we see it, but we say, well, there are exceptions now. So any topic where there is an exception in our consciousness, it pops up. And it's great that it does, because it indicates that this is an area of growth. This is where being, and now I'm speaking about the inner being, wants to expand through us. So it's yet another pointer for us to keep on looking at one direction versus the other. So I don't know if that answers your question, but keep on. You can refer to a specific part if you want.
Yeah, it's a kind of learning to understand that you need to go inside, and every time I'm doing these recordings and you are doing these recordings, we are pointing to the same thing, and when you try to understand this intellectually, you maybe hear that, oh, she's talking about the same thing now again, over and over again. I have heard it before, but it's not what you and I are pointing to, that the story around it. We just want you to just come understand that it's an inside learning, and the triggers you feel, it's something that you must take a better look at and recognize what it's in you that make this the uncomfortable feelings. Because when we follow our heart, we can rest. We know that feeling, because when we are in that loving state and we connect with our heart, it feels, we got a feeling of calmness, and it's comfortable. And when we are triggered by our thoughts and outcome, circumstances, persons, and things, we there's something that we need to understand. It's a learning, and it can be also in the body. We do something with our body. We eat something that are not good for us. We drink something that not good for us, or we are together with people that doesn't resonate with us. So we go against our feeling and it triggers us. So it can be like a love letter, like Bill Pettit says, that here is something, a call for us, that we need to look better.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're right. It's so, here's the thing, we get an insight about this whole thing, no matter what language you're using, three principles or beyond that. And we may experience so much peace and so much just embracing all that is so much presence. And then the mind always wants to intellectualize, and it always will. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is if we don't separate, in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which is where all yoga comes from, there is this pointer that there's a difference between transcendence, or we can replace it with another word, so presence, wisdom, and intellect. So essentially that the part says even the most enlightened intellect is very different from transcendence. So this has been a very important pointer since the beginning, like one of the oldest spiritual traditions point to it. So if you pay attention to that difference, and it's helpful, and you do that by the feeling, by the way. So an intellectual insight that maybe was helpful in terms of dealing with a question, with an issue you had months ago, days ago, it's still good to have that memory, to have that insight. But you have to, as you said, take the same journey, go inside. Because then you access wisdom, and wisdom can access memory, but memory cannot access wisdom. And it's all very in moment. And if not for these triggers that you're pointing to, we wouldn't be prompted to take that journey again. It's almost like that our inner being loves us so much, and it keeps on, whenever there's this perspective that our pure being has about a topic or a person, and what our current state of mind and the intellect has about that. And if there's a mismatch, we just feel that distance. That's what we mean when we say we're feeling or thinking. And actually, a more accurate way to say that would be we're feeling, let's say, the distance between how this thought feels at that moment and how a deeper and more intelligent thought that is mindful of the totality of things would perceive it. And that contrast is very helpful. The interesting thing is that we, in a way, we intuitively all know this. So people have like really bad thoughts, and when they're very agitated, they just say, whatever. I must not be thinking straight, right? Like, especially when it's very extreme. Some people do it differently. But the interesting part is that when that level of intensity is not so high, so it's just maybe a little bit of anxiety and agitation about something. And in most cases, because it has been so normal, like, we don't really interpret it the same way as we interpret, let's say, a thought that, oh my God, I would just smash this person. Because when we have the other thought, we go like, oh, geez, what's happening with my thinking? Let me revisit it. Let me just think about something else, or I don't need to do anything about this. But when it's just a little less, you go like, oh, wow, this is the enemy. I have to get rid of this feeling. And I get focused on the feeling. It has already taken form. I keep on engaging with it. And then there's a snowball effect. Whereas it was there, again, to point us back inside and get really, really curious. I ask this to the people that I speak with and the people that I coach. What has been helpful to me and in my community as well is really making sure you're more curious than afraid. You can't make sure of it, but if you're really, really curious, okay, this is coming up. Honest, not just say that I'm gonna go back to my wisdom to see but really do it. Like, really take time, really take a day. It's like, okay, this is coming up. This keeps on coming up. Like, let me really sit with it. Whatever it is that I'm feeling. And often it's like a little child. It just wants you to pay attention to it. Just feel it. Just maybe even feel it in your body. And then it goes away. Whereas where we are constantly in the content of our thinking and we want to analyze it, and that's how we want to like just push through it. I'm just gonna analyze through it. The same trigger keeps on coming back as a friend. But it's easy to speak about it. I mean, it comes up for all of us. I mean, we say, I mentioned the way of mastery, what everything in this universe is either extension of love or cry for help and healing. Well, I mean, there's a lot of cry for help and healing that is actually violence to other people, that is very unjust, that is very brutal. What are we supposed to do with that? So it's a constantly evolving conversation.
And when I speak and share about my transformation from the very, very dark side and to the consciousness I'm in now, I will be honest to say that when I was sitting with it, all the feelings and fear and everything, it was sometimes very awful. But I really know that it's the only way to just go through it and understand that we all have both sides of dark and light. And if my beliefs have been my made up story has been very, I was good at making up stories about myself. So to just put that story down and look at it, really look at it. Who am I behind all this? It takes a lot of curious and you must really understand that you need to sit with it and allow these feelings just to go through you. And you can do it together with someone. That's why I do this kind of conversations with people, because I know that it helps to be together in a room like this and hear people that have done this by themselves. It's a hope for others that it's possible, and nothing's going to happen.
Yeah.
But a safe place a safe place to be in and speak with people that have gone deeper with I am.
Yeah. We're so afraid of our feelings. It's not a coincidence that Sydney Banks said if the only thing people learned was not to be afraid of their feelings, that alone would change the world. We think that a lot of us think that there's something wrong with feeling sadness, feeling negativity, anything. And there's no such thing as a solution to a feeling. If you're saying like we have to transcend it. Now, I mean, I'm not okay with feeling this. That's the story that I'm telling. So give me a technique, help me feel differently. When I'm saying I'm not okay with feeling this, I'm adding an additional layer of thinking and stories and intellectual efforts that just energizes the same, the original thought that was there for me to experience it. And I think a lot of that fear comes from us thinking that, well, I mean, if I start experiencing, if I just give in to that feeling, it's just going to take over. I'm going to feel it all the time. But this is where it's very, very helpful, as you said, to get very curious about the nature of thought. What do we really know about thought? or what can we presume to know about thought, and then really look and see if it's true or not. And one of these things is that it's transient. It's always transient. It comes and goes. There is a continuous flow of thought. The second part, which is also useful, is for as long as we keep our attention on a specific thought or a direction of thoughts, it's going to stick around. If wherever energy goes, wherever attention goes, energy flows. So these two are super helpful. I mean, really check it out for yourself and see, like, have you ever thought a thought that just never let go of you and kept on constantly showing up? No. So, and that's where the trust comes in. I know that if I take my hands off it, but funnily enough, taking your hands off it in this metaphor would be actually to feel it. Okay, I'm giving in to you. I'm sitting with you. I'm sitting it with you for 30 minutes. I'm not going to do anything. And then just see what happens.
And that's a more helpful way to say it, Razmik, because sometimes when people say, just drop it, just drop it. So how can you drop something that holding on to you, it's something you just need to do, and you can't drop it. Where are you supposed to drop it?
That's a very important topic, because I don't think thoughts have a momentum of their own in that sense, but they have received the momentum given the amount of maybe attention they have got from us, and now we have externalized it. We have created stories about it. My partner made me feel this, but this business made me feel this. This happened, and that has a certain momentum. So it's important to honor that. And well, you can change your mind how preoccupied you want to be about that in that specific instance. But to just think that and try to amend the content of thinking and amend the content of feeling is a very unreasonable thing to do. And this is, I think, a trap that a lot of people interested in personal development or spirituality we get into. So because we come across practices that are very helpful, like meditation, for example. I mean, I meditate a lot. I think the meaning of it has changed for me. But if I try to use that, in this moment, now I'm just going to get away from that thought and get away through that feeling, just trick myself. Well, no. And it makes zero sense to do that, because if you're feeling, I'm feeling low, I'm feeling very frustrated, that's letting me know about my lack of capacity to do something about it. Like my ability to do something about it at that moment, if there is indeed something to do about it, is at its lowest. That's all I need to know. So you can just decide, I don't need to be preoccupied about this. Okay, my thinking is kind of clogged. So, but to get in there and actively, even like you're saying, just drop it, like actively drop it. That's the problem with the whole thing. Well, you can't. So what do? Well, you get comfortable with being uncomfortable. What if you can't? You're just uncomfortable. That's the problem. Well, the problem is that it feels very uncomfortable. But actually, that's not the problem. The real problem is we make a big deal out of it. It's the stories we build in addition to it, not just the feeling itself. You can enjoy all feelings, or you can just feel them. You just be. I feel this way. I say I feel sad, but if I say, I am sad, and then I tell the story, I've been feeling sad for so long, and then it's because of this and because of that, then all of a sudden there's this rigidity to it. But I feel sad, and you're right, it's so helpful to just be there with another human being. Oh, me too. Me too.
And when you say that, I'm sad, maybe you cry, maybe you get angry. What we point to is that that's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't mean that that you need to have any medication for it, or you have to feel that you are sick. That's the whole system. It works. It works for you. It tells you that now I need to cry, and can I sit together with you and you allow me to do that because I feel for it now. And how about that feeling, to sit together with someone that allows you to feel, to just cry? No advice, no do like this and do like that. No, just sit together and let me cry. And we all know that if we can be in that space with someone, it will feel better after. So that's the whole difference. And that's why I were sitting in the room together with people that the level of consciousness is higher. It's more open to see that there's nothing wrong with me. I just thought, because the whole society tells me that, oh, do you feel like that? That's not good. That's wrong. So you need help. And I thought that it was okay. They have rights. I'm not all right. I'm sick. So the understanding don't separate us, we and them. It's just that I'm going through this feeling right now. And if you're here for me and listen to me, it will feel better. And I will come back to my ground again and continue my life. It's like pointing us back again. So we all know. It's just that some people think they know more than others. Yes, we have different consciousness, level of consciousness. But that doesn't say that it must be so forever. It's just that we have been curious, you and I, and a lot of people have. We had in my case, I had so much pain because of all the stories I made up. So I had to look. I came to that point that I had to look inside instead.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it's this, again, going back to this trigger topic, like I think Eckhart Tolle has a saying, reality isn't supposed to fulfill you, it's just supposed to frustrate you enough to look within. So sometimes, and this is where the whole Buddhist idea of suffering creates grace comes from, because you keep on trying to solve inner issues in an external direction, and it doesn't work, and it doesn't work, so you have to surrender. What I find very interesting is, well, a couple of things. Number one is, and I remember this recently, a really good friend of mine, an elder Armenian man living in New York, Georgia Martian, late Georgia Martian, is such a wonderful human being. I remember once I don't know what I was sad about, and we spoke, and he said, reach out and speak with someone in need, or something like that, and it will restore your balance. I was like, wow, that's actually an interesting idea. And honest to God, like that's probably one of the reasons I think I'm into coaching so much, because we think that we are the separate individuals and we have to deal with all of it. Again, wherever attention goes, energy flows. So sometimes I'm struggling with something. I'm sitting in a coaching call, and my focus is on the other person, and all of that is gone. So it's also, there's that part where, yeah, you have another person and the listening and the connection and is allowing you to really go through whatever you're going, but sometimes it's actually defocusing if you've been spending a lot of intellectual effort on it, just defocusing from it. And the other part, the value of actually coaching is, we had an Armenian mystic, Gurdjieff, who said, the only prison you cannot escape is the one you don't see, which is the prison of thoughts. And because thought is so powerful, whatever we think, it justifies itself. We look at, I decide that oven is going to make me, I feel this way because of this oven. My mind is immediately going to justify. It's just so powerful. It's all around us. That's why they say when, I don't know who discovered water, but I'm pretty sure it's not fish. It's all encompassing. So when you have another person that just you're fish in the water, but they're in their own different waters. But it's helpful. They can see that for the blind spots for you sometimes a little bit easier. But it's not a matter of then talking your way out of it, as you said. It's actually with that enhanced presence, you feel more safe to just feel whatever you're feeling, and then it's a co-creation, and then it's magical what happens. And I love something else that you said. We think the spiritual journey is not necessarily a linear thing. It's not like, oh, I've been in this conversation 10 years, 5 years. I know more than you do. And Sid Banks was perfectly clear about this as well. And if you're in this line of work, you know this for sure. Sometimes you speak with people, and in the moment, like there's this, because we all have innate wisdom. We all do. And when we get away, like just the magnitude of what can come through us is just so incredible. It's very fascinating to witness it, how it comes through yourself. Like sometimes I say something as, wow, did I just say this? Or the other person says, and so there is no such thing as, oh, I've been in this conversation for such a long time and I know more than you do. So that's a very dynamic thing. And I think transformation can be very radical as well. There are a lot of approaches to that. But I think there's also value to, more often than not, it's just a little often, and is a very good format, you know. It's like you're diving into a little lake, like just get something and take it up. Like in the tradition of Ayurveda and transcendental meditation, they use the clothing metaphor. Like you have you want to color it. So you have the paint and you put the clothing inside, bring it out, like a little bit of color is already on it. And then some sun comes on it, and like a little bit of sticks, a little bit of is gone. So you keep on going there. Like I think it's very hopeful to know that you can just always go back in there, come back out, go back in there. And in a way, the inner and outer are the same. But this, in terms of using it as a metaphor, in terms of our learning, going back to our transcendence, going back to our being, our wisdom, yeah, it's very helpful to know that it can be step by step, it can be radical. I've witnessed both with other people, with me. There is no preconditioned right or wrong way. You have to really listen to your intuition and be very curious. Not have to.
And the triggers can also be that there are so much in the unknown that you can't see. And the deeper you go, that's more you can see how huge it is. How little Razmik and Cecilia knows. There are so much wisdom out there, and we make ourselves very small, and we get caught up in that. I'm this and you that, and I can get caught up in comparing with others. It triggers me.
Yeah.
And that's old stuff coming, and I recognize it, and I just try to leave it because it doesn't help me. It's also a kind of separation from others, that Razmik is better than I, but there's only one Cecilia, so I have to remember that I need to focus on me. But that can be really difficult sometimes, and I think we all struggle with that.
Yeah. Yeah, now we're getting into a very, I think, very deep and interesting part of this conversation. Well, you mentioned there's just so much in the unknown. I think often we're scared of that. We when the attention goes inwards, no matter whether it's through a conversation with a person or any meditative experience not prompted by anything, we feel that they're maybe very not small, but there is so much more to us. And this is where it's the oneness of life comes up. And a lot of there's this ego death is a common expression in all these conversations. But I'm not a believer in that concept in a way that, well, if that transition is step by step, especially like then your ego starts encompassing everything. It's not like it's dying. So instead of I mean it's metaphorically speaking. So ego dies or ego starts encompassing anything. Then there's the perception of oneness, me being one with everything. And this is you pointed to the sense of connection in coaching context or any other conversation. It's I think recognizing that our individual selves are not, I mean, we're part of this big ecosystem. Maybe we're very small, tiny cells. If you visualize yourself being part of the whole universe, and even in terms of distance, like we're just little parts on Earth, and then there's the whole solar system. And think about the North Star, think about the sun. And we can feel like we're very little, but then we're part of the whole. And there's a sense of ease in that. Like everybody else is struggling with the same thing, maybe not the same thing. Eventually it's the same thing, actually thought, mistaken to be something more than it is. But I mean, you're right. It's absolutely important to take time sometimes to just sit with that. That's why having a community is just so helpful. And I've also noticed, this is funny, we've been, because besides coaching, I also do public relations, and we've been working with like how do therapists and coaches and meditation teachers, how do they get clients? Like, what are people interested in? And we ask people, like, what are you hoping to get? Like, or like, let's say you're on a website, like, what are you hoping to get? And so many people say vulnerability, like really, like you get vulnerable, it helps me be vulnerable as well. So there's that element of social proof as well. But not that you need that, but it's sometimes super helpful.
It is,
And
because we got these blind spots.
yes,
we all got these blind spots, and when you look more and more inside and get curious, we have all these conversations. I think you also have conversation and go deeper and deeper almost every day with people. Something happens inside of you, and I wasn't in that place for a couple of years ago, because I had a lot of blind spots and stories and thoughts that was I couldn't see.
yeah,
So when we are out with others, there are a lot of people that can't see. But that doesn't mean it's not possible for them.
Yeah.
It's just mean that there are thoughts that a belief system that makes them not seeing right there.
Yeah.
But if they can just open that window and maybe later that door, you can start walking that road and start to see more and more. And that's the level of consciousness. We take step by step. And Sydney Banks, he opened the hall and saw and get enlightened. And that's not possible for everyone. Some does, like Buddha, Sydney Banks, Jesus. But if we look in that direction, we can hear things and we can recognize things that are innate in us. And we can also try to point people in that direction. But it can trigger us to, if you see things that others don't see, and you try to tell them, but they don't see, they maybe feel that they are broken. And you know that, no, you're not. But they can't see it. And you can just try to make them feel that there are no problems here with that they are broken.
Yeah. Well, there's a difference between essentially telling or repeating to somebody, you're not broken, you haven't had wisdom, you haven't had wisdom, versus really seeing that for yourself. You don't see them as broken. So you see the innate health in people, and you speak to that, what you see. And that, if you can, and that's the more you are connected, obviously, to that part within you. Again, it's all metaphorical. The easier it is for you to continue talking to that part, even if that person in that moment maybe doesn't see it so much. So that's just so much more helpful than, again, just words and artificial pointers.
And sometimes they are not ready. I met people before I had my wake up, my huge insight, and I didn't hear, and I wasn't ready, so I had to suffer a little more, and then it came from within. I had enough, and then I started to listen.
Yeah.
So I wasn't ready yet, but there was a possibility to get ready, and it came.
Yeah, this is why it's so important to really trigger people's sense of hope. Like, so many people just, I mean, if you have never experienced it, you don't know you don't know that it's possible, or maybe you think that you have to take a very long journey before you get there. But the beauty of it is that there's this exponential growth part. So essentially, in a way, we're never the same. Every second, we think different thoughts, and then we look at reality through these thoughts, and then this is a continuous journey. So it's like, imagine a river covered with ice. Surprise, surprise! I'm in Skåne, and now all this metaphor. This is the type of metaphors that come to my mind. But imagine it's very thick ice, and the ice is, let's say, your conditioning, all this unnecessary thinking and limiting beliefs, and you want to get rid of the ice. Well, hopefully there's this flow of being, so you don't have to do that all manually. You just need a crack. Once there's that crack, it can be gentle. It doesn't need to be brutal. Once there's this crack, a little bit of water is coming up. So you see more, and that water is pushing down on the ice, so it's easier for this to get more cracks, and then there's more water pushing on it, and it's beautiful. It's just beautiful, and sometimes it can all happen very quickly, as you can imagine. This process is just energizing itself. Sometimes it takes more time, and this is a very important thing, like the timing of it. Like I think, especially in the like earlier days of my career in life, I think I was a very impatient person in terms of, oh, I've set a goal and I'm just putting so much effort into it, it just has to happen. And it does happen, and it did happen, but maybe just not in the timeline that I thought it would happen. So nothing was wrong with, I mean, there was nothing wrong, but for me thinking that it was supposed to happen already by now. And like, how is that? Like, that's not a helpful thought. It's, I mean, and if you think about even the feeling you have with it, it's telling you it's not a helpful thought. Well, I mean, it hasn't happened. What are you going to do about it? Oh, I'm going to use that as justification to add to my bucket of suffering. Oh, well, go for it. Yeah, we do. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's why the feeling keeps on. It almost feels like it raises its voice a little bit more to get our attention, and that's why then we feel it in the body. Like it's all reflected in the body. It's projects itself into the body. So again, maybe it's all a wake-up call, either an extension of love or a call for healing and understanding.
The wake-up call often comes from something not nice happened. Uncomfortable pain or circumstances that you don't like at all, hard times, difficult things, and suddenly you just have this wake up.
Yeah.
And you think you gotta get it when you meditate, but and I love to meditate, but often it's not that time it happens. It's what I heard from myself and from a lot of other people sharing to me, that they went through some difficult things, and they had to put it on the table, all what they went through, and suddenly something happened. They saw it, they sat with it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Then
there's
they
this tend of.
realized.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I think it makes perfect sense. It's often you lose probably something that maybe you thought was the source of your wellness and happiness, or you get something that you think is the source of your unhappiness. And again, that level of frustration prompts a journey within. But it doesn't have to be that way. Like, it's important to highlight that. Like, yeah, suffering can prompt a greater journey. And like we've spoken about this with Dr. Amy Johnson on her podcast quite a lot. And especially I'm from Armenia, and there's never a boring day in our region. Wars, armed conflicts, you name it, just even recently. And we spoke about how can this be an occasion to accelerate growth and everything, and a lot of subtleties in that. But it's super important to know that you don't need that. Sure, your suffering can bring grace, but you don't need to suffer. That's the whole purpose of a spiritual teaching or spirit. You can replace the word spiritual, just inner inquiry, personal development, whatever works for you. Just see more so that you don't have to go through all of this in this lifetime. Who knows? Maybe there are more lifetimes, and we just continue the journey. That's the Buddhist belief. Nobody knows.
And when we start to look in this direction, we start also to see that this is not just something that I go around and feel and think. This is very universal, that we have anxious feelings and thoughts around all kinds of things, and we are not separate in those human experiences.
We're all walking each other home, like Ramdas has said. It's, I mean, the stories are different that we tell to ourselves and each other. But yeah, you're right. That just seeing the humanness of all of that is so wonderful. And maybe this is like a good last point to summarize it. But I've seen both in my work with people and in terms of my own experiences and going through all of this, is it's very helpful to work with the lows and the negative points sometimes much more than the positive points. Just how okay are you not being okay? What happens when you get to these low moods? Get really curious. I mean, for me, so one thing that has been super helpful is seeing that I have the stories, the symptoms that keep on coming up when I'm in these low moods. And I used to be so afraid of them. And like you can literally think, what's wrong with me? I mean, we've spoken about this. Am I broken? Am I this? And then you see that the stories can be just symptoms of low states of mind. And that's it. They're there to inform us about that state of mind, about that mood. And if you're not afraid of it, if you can go through it with playfulness and humor and ease and forgiveness, work with other people, let our curiosity take over, then we're golden.
And the triggers can also be very small triggers. It can be, you need to eat. That's why you're have a low mood, or you need to sleep, or you need to take a rest. It can be very small things, but
Yeah.
I can't find the English word.
Say it in Swedish.
Påverkar.
Influences.
Yeah, you're a low mood and high mood because it's fluctuating, and you feel like, oh, so when you're hungry, your mood is maybe low, and it's just temporary. So it triggers you. Oh, I'm so angry. He's doing that and that. So there we go with the triggers. So the triggers can be something you need to, it's a letter. It's a call for you to look inside. Where am I now? What can I do now to take care of myself? Because I had a call that told me, and it can feels like a trigger.
Absolutely. So, and it's a good reminder. I mean, we say that we experience our thinking. Yes, our experience of life is coming from within us, but like it's not a good idea to turn this into a radical approach in terms of, oh, well, I mean, of course, you mentioned this thing, they influence our state of body and everything. So just embrace all of that and go through that. But at the same time, remember that the solution is never in the content of thinking. It's not going into the content. It's just feeling it and going through it. And yeah, and then intuitively something pops up. Oh, I'm just gonna go and eat. Of course, your body needs nutrition. I'm gonna go and sleep. Sleep is incredible. It's taking away the momentum of thinking. So there is a difference. I mean, you can just listen to your intuition and do something, just whatever occurs to you, versus going like, oh no, I'm unhappy because I haven't done this. Then that's a different thing. So intuition is a wonderful thing. I've been contemplating about it more and more recently. It's something comes up. Something always comes up. It's just a matter of how much we pay attention to it. And I think if we are enough, and if the solution to a problem that was created from within is also within, then that's the only place where the solution is. If you're enough, and then you're enough, then only you are enough. You know what I'm trying to say?
And when your level of consciousness get higher or deeper, you can also recognize things with others. If maybe they have low mood, you can just be there and support them. They maybe need to eat, let them eat, and then you can have that talk later on. So it's a kind of taking care of you and taking care of others. You know that everyone here is guided, even if it doesn't feel that way sometimes, because we always all of us have these ups and downs and get triggered. And I think we always is going to whole life, and that's how we grow and learn.
Yeah. I don't remember what it was. It was some sort of a Buddhist idea, and the question was like, okay, what happens if you get an insight, or if you can take it to an extreme, if you get in light, like what do you do? And I think it's a monk or something. You're like, well, open your eyes. And what happens when you open your eyes? You see other people. So you see it for yourself, you see it for other people. That's where the communication part comes in. It's beautiful. It's a dance. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's just so much suffering happening in many parts of the world. My own hometown, my own home is just going through so much. Like, and it breaks my heart sometimes when I start thinking about all of this. So nothing that we're pointing to is gaslighting anything that's happening.
No,
We're
we're
speaking
here to
about
support. We're here to support.
exactly, yeah. We're speaking about the experience of life, and we have to. If you want more peace in the world, the only choice is to generate it from within. Because, and then you try to be an extension of that. But you have to counterbalance it. You have to generate the exact opposite from within. Because if you get too fixated on the features of the trigger, it's just drawing you in.
This was a beautiful speak, Razmik.
Thank you so much, as always, Cecilia. It's wonderful speaking with you. You're doing a great job. I mean, you've interviewed some very, very interesting people. I know quite many of them, and you have a great audience all over the world in Skåne. So, if anybody
And you
listening,
also have this podcast, Razmik, brand new thoughts
yes,
for people to listen to. And
yeah,
next time we meet in person.
absolutely. Yeah, if go check out the podcast, just listen to Cecilia's content. I mean, there's just so much out there, and if you feel like you need to have a conversation, please reach out to me or to Cecilia and
Yeah.
support people in your community. Share this. I mean, we're here to support each other, and it's a wonderful journey.
And you can find where to contact us in the bio.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cecilia.
Bye.
Bye.